Hey everyone, welcome to my first of the planetary energies basics. Today we are going to discuss basics, okay? So what do I mean by planetary energies? Planetary energies are what are planets basically? As far as astrology is concerned, planets are just energies which represent certain types of propensities, certain types of inclinations that we might have, okay? It may be towards emotion, it may be towards intellect, it may be towards fluctuating mind, it may be towards artistic traits, it may be towards knowledge, it may be towards action, or any number of things. These kinds of things are called propensities. So planetary energies, Mars, Venus, whatever we talk about, think of them as just energetics, energies that we encounter, okay? Now these energies that we encounter are of two kinds. Basically, one is as per your birth chart, which is basically a snapshot of all the planets where they were in the heavens when you were born, as well as when they are transiting your birth chart. Meaning, at the time you were born, Mercury, Mars, Venus, everybody was at a certain place in a certain house. You see the ascendants chart, you'll know what the houses are, the ascendant videos. So at the time you were born, they were in a certain house, in a certain sign. And since then, the planets have been moving and they superimpose upon your birth chart, as in it keeps on moving. It's like, think of them as two clocks, okay? Synchronized movement. And I'll show you that maybe some other time. But it's a synchronized movement. It's like one gear against another gear. So it'll bring you to different situations, different energies that you need to understand. So let's talk about planets first, because once you understand planets, you will understand how they act, where they act, and in which ascendant, blah blah blah, everything else. So let's go to the next slide. Here you're seeing the three classification of planets as I put it. One is that blue circle in the center, which I call personal planets. Personal planets is about your personal lineage, your personal karma, the lineage karma, your personality, the physical, mental, emotional, etc. What's your overall personality? And your individual life paths. Now the whole purpose of this whole series I'm making is to how to connect you and your life path to the world outside. Unless an individual is connected to the collective, what we speak of in New Human Being series is pretty much pointless. Okay, you need to be able to connect your own life path with the rest of humanity, which is the collective. The whole exercise which I'm presenting here and in this series and in further series is to go to that direction where I meet the rest of the world. How do I go and meet the rest of the world in a way that is personally satisfying to me as well as satisfying to the rest of the collective? There are these two to be met. Remember, we spoke of this even in the New Human Being series. How do you meet the world? How do you meet yourself? How do you meet the rest of the world? So we have the personal planets which affect you personally, and these planets are fast moving planets. Number one, they are the ones closest to the earth. Okay, so where's my pen? Okay, so we have here the moon, the Rahu and the Ketu, north and the south node, which are closest to the earth. There's the earth, and then there is Mercury, there's Venus, and there's Mars. So this form the inner circle, the blue one. Okay, so the inner circle, the blue one. Okay, so which is, let me see if I can highlight here. This is the inner circle. Okay, and then comes, these are all the personal planets, which is your personal karma, which is your lineage karma. What do I mean by lineage karma? It's your ancestry, wherever you were born in. Doesn't matter which part of the planet you were born in. You had great 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 grandfathers who had their own karma, which you take on when you take on the body. Okay, and that determines also your personality, your nature, your physical features, your mental makeup, your emotional makeup, and it also signifies your individual life path. Okay, then comes what I call the extra-personal planets. Extra-personal means these planets, Jupiter and Saturn, they help you connect the inner world to the rest of the world. or the transpersonal planets, which belong to a whole generation, which is the rest of humanity, right? So we go from individual to extrapersonal to transpersonal, to transcend the personal planets. Of course, this will also be in your individual charts. We'll come across all that later on in the series. So extrapersonal planets, what are they? They are the bridge between individual and external world. Remember these key points. They are the bridge between individual and rest of the world. So this will give you higher knowledge, wisdom. This will give you higher action, what you are supposed to take. Saturn is more about action and the duties which one carries out in the physical world. Jupiter is a knowledge, higher knowledge to get that done. And the transpersonal planets are all about collective humanity. They are also called as generational planets because they take a long time to go around the sun. The sun is over here. And so the integration of personal and greater collective comes into the transpersonal planets. Means how do you as a person use this to go in harmony? The whole exercise is to go in harmony with the rest of the world, right? So let us start with the first one, the sun. The sun, the soul self of the sun. Why is the sun called the soul self? Well, if you have gone through already my series on the ascendants, the ascendant or the first house is your soul, where your soul resides. Is the significator of the first house. That means where your soul wants to shine is signified by your first house. Okay? So it is the sense of self, its ego, its fame, it seeks recognition. Sun wants a recognition. It's the self-illuminating principle of ego. Sun doesn't require any other light to shine. It shines all by itself. That's why it is self-illuminating principle. Okay? Gives light to every lord of the first house. If the first house is Mercury, sun will shine on Mercury. If it's Venus, on Venus. If it's Saturn, it's on Saturn. What do you mean by sun shining? Your soul's light is shining on that first house. That's why it ties in very well with the Ascendant series. If you haven't watched my Ascendant series, please go watch that first. Find out what your Ascendant is. Either you can do it with consultation with me, or you can find many free Vedic charts website around in the internet. So you can do either one of them. But find out what your Ascendant is. Go to the Ascendant series and check out which your Ascendant is, how it plays out. So you will know what your self-illuminating, where sun is shining on you, is the first house. So it is the nourisher, the father figure and the authority figure. Sun stands for all of this. It stands for the nourisher, the father figure, the authority figure. It nourishes everything, all life. It's the soul light of the ego. It wants to shine. It wants to shine through expression, creative expression, pursuit of knowledge. Okay? It's a Sattvic planet. So sun's place in the chart determines where one's ascendant wants to go. Okay? So ascendant is where the soul's light is shining. The physical placement of sun in which house and which sign determines what you are here to accomplish as a soul. Okay? So it wants to show this presence in this lifetime. Where the soul wants to shine through ego is felt very strongly wherever the sun is placed. So I want you to start understanding all this in terms of energies. These are all energies of life. Okay? Let's talk about the second illuminary, the moon, the mind. Moon is the mind. It's a wrong concept to think moon is the emotions. Moon is the mind, the fluctuating mind, the monkey mind. Okay? So the mind is a trickster, a deceiver. It's unsatisfied hunger. Mind always constantly wants one thing or the other. New clothes, new partners, new business, more money. It's more very materialistic. It's a lustful energy of life. It is sly. It's a cheater. It says, I want this, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. That voice in your head. That's why it is sly. It is restless, constantly wanting to shift what their preferences are. It has desire for consciousness, but it wants to feel this consciousness through translation to ego. Mind is the translator, or the moon is the translator of ego in physical world. That's so, because moon has the same energies. Get the energies of the moon, which is waxing and waning all the time, and you will know what this is about. That's why it is constant changing and wavering of emotions through changing ideas. So the moon is the mind reflected onto the emotion. So whatever you're thinking always has an emotional counterpart. So moon is about that. Moon is a constantly changing mind which has constantly changing set of emotions. Okay. That is why moon has 27 nakshatras. Now this is a large topic. Maybe I'll cover it in some other series, not this one. Okay. Changing emotions, wants and desires through the mind. Therefore the moon is significator of the mind. If it comes in 4th house, it becomes significator of the mother, because 4th house stands for the mother. By itself, it is not motherly. By itself, it's just the mind. It wants to feel through possession. It's very selfish. Mothers are selfish. They want things only for the kids. It's materialistic in its pursuits. It wants to translate things to materials, something like Venus. So it wants to gain wealth in prosperity. House, moon is a significator of house, acquisitions, and it wants to travel constantly. It's a moving sign because of the moon. It's changing thoughts and changing desires. This is characteristic of any house which falls in the house of Cancer. We saw that in the ascendants. Changing according to house. It's less about intellect, more about satisfaction. Why? Because the mind reflected into the emotions wants to give you satisfaction. This is the contentment people keep looking for in the material realms. It's about satisfaction. Fulfillment of desires, satisfaction from fulfillment of desires. Mind that is driven by emotional content, that's the key. So mind goes into emotions, okay, and emotions comes back to the mind. This circle, vicious circle, is the moon, right? Okay, let's go to the next one, Mercury. Mercury is the intellect of the zodiac. It's the mind. Again, there are the many facets of the mind, but this is the intellect. And you can think of Mercury as a prince, a princely person, a young man who is ambitious. So everything is pertaining to a prince. Prince is who? He is ambitious. He wants to be the king. He's very mental. He's very restless. He is more like a friend, a companion. Mercury wants logic, reasoning, communication faculties. Everything Mercury wants is through logic, reasoning, communication faculties. That's why Mercury is a significator of communication. He is very restless, like we said. So that's why he wants quick results. No patience. Young man. A prince has no patience. That's why Mercury becomes good at marketing, writing, mass communications, journalism, business, very calculative, and as well as a scientist if the planets are in a certain way. Here's another characteristic of Mercury. He's into more mimicry. The prince, he wants to mimic his dad, princely. He's into mimicry, will encourage any planet that he sits in with no individuality. Mercury still hasn't formed individuality. The prince is still very, very childish. Okay, so this is what makes a Mercury a princely person. Young man. Think of him as a young man. Now, on the other hand, Venus, the sensual one, the muse, is a princess, the feminine counterpart, the prince and the princess. Full of what? Full of lust, full of vanity. Venus wants to show off her beauty, take selfies, post it on Instagram, right? So it's full of materialism, and it also has on the positive side a lot of creativity, materialistic creativity. Wanting clothes, jewelry, art. Who is the princess? She's a lover. She's an artistic. She's a muse. It's also responsible for creativity, romance, wealth, and prosperity. Venus wants to translate everything into sensual. That's why she is the sensual one. Sensory wealth. Wants adoration, romantic love, material comforts. Princess wants all the material comforts. See, she's talking in Venus in terms of princess. A princess desires all the material comforts. On the other hand, she's responsible for renaissance and reform, because Venus, let's look at art and creativity from another perspective. It is reforming. Throughout the human civilization, what has been reforming the humankind is a higher sense of artistic. Venus wants to do things differently. Art is about creation of new things. So she wants to reform and have a renaissance through artistic creativity. This is another positive point that Venus brings. Okay. through spiritual reform. What is spiritual reform for Venus? Venus, the highest form of Venus is pure devotion. That's why she is exalted in the 12th house. Pure devotion, what we call bhakti yoga in Vedic literature. So bhakti comes from where? From Venus. It's a pure devotion. Highest form of Venus is pure devotion. She is into spreading and cultivating beauty, art, materialism, but for common good. That's why Saturn heavily supports Venus signs. Why? Because Venus wants to do it for others, for the benefit of humanity. In Taurus, she can become very selfish, yes, but generally it's for the common good. Next comes our soldier, Mars, the warrior. He's a soldier mentality. Okay? So soldier is one who wants to get the energy of Mars as a soldier. He's got drive, he's got aggression, and he's into selfless action. He's not worried about friends, he's not worried about competition, he just wants to go and do stuff. Do stuff. Get shit done is Mars. Okay? Just get that simply. A soldier, a protector, a warrior. These are the energies of Mars. He's very physical, very active. He's a mover. He doesn't believe in sitting quietly at any place. He's a hunter. He will go hunt stuff and get things in life. He's got the passion to get material things. Active body. He wants a house, vehicles, fast moving stuff. He wants to possess stuff. He's got the drive to achieve. See, anything you want to achieve in life, you need Mars. Wherever Mars is placed in your house, you'll be very, very physically active to get that stuff in life. Understand, the drive to achieve is Mars. Through physical activity and passion, with passion. So, and he's a moving kind of energy, okay? Personal and external. He'll get things done through personal fire. Mars has its own personal fire. See, think of Mars as somebody who wants to be like Sun. He derives energy from the Sun very powerfully to get a fire, okay? Personal fire. He's got drive, he's got aggression, and he's got passion. That's Mars. Then we come to this. Okay, let me start Rahu again. My PC is giving furry problems. Alright, so Rahu is the obsessive compulsive guy. He's a drive energy. It's the north node of the moon. The orbits of the moon and sun intersect one another. Okay, where's the camera guy? Okay, so it intersects one another at 2 points. One is called the north node, one is called the south node. So Rahu is the north node point, Ketu is the south node point. Symbol is of a horseshoe up and reverse horseshoe. The up one is Rahu, is obsessive compulsive drive energy within all of us. It's an imposter. It behaves like the lord of the sign it sits in, which is also called the dispositor. The energy of Rahu is to over amplify the quality it sits in. It's endless wanting, never quenching the thirst. It's always going after something in life. It's a very karmic sign. It's a karmic point, node. Obsession and exaggeration through sign and house. Okay, what does it do for us? It is a moving desire for materialistic gain. So Rahu always wants something. Whatever is amplifying, it's amplifying for what? For materialistic gain. It wants to feel through the world, feel through relationships, feel through power or fame or recognition or wealth or partnerships or gains, any number, wherever it sits in the chart, it tends to over amplify that. Yes? I think I'll have to stop and start these things time and again. Okay. See you on the other side. Ketu. What is Ketu? Ketu energy is the reclusive. It's the withdrawn. It's the opposite of Rahu. See, remember the opposite, the reverse horseshoe sign is Ketu, the south node of the moon. So it's opposite of whatever Rahu wants, whatever opposite sign it sits in, they all sit 180 degrees apart. If here is Rahu, here will be Ketu in your chart, whichever your chart is, right? So they're opposite sides. Now what does Ketu signify? It is a reclusive, it's withdrawn energy, introverted energy, meaning it does not want things. It's the reverse of Rahu. So it does not want things. Whatever sign or house it sits in, it behaves as I don't want these things in my life. It's an imposter. Again, behaves with the lord of the sign. It sits the same as Rahu, but it goes with the dispositor. But this time it sits in the opposite side of Rahu. So they are always 180 degrees apart. And whichever obsession Rahu has, the opposite sign, it is always having dissolution towards, or it doesn't want that things in the life. So it is implosive. Like Rahu is explosive, this is implosive. It oversimplifies everything, detaches from the house qualities it sits in. So Ketu is just the reverse of Rahu in everything. It's endless dissolution, non-attachment to things. So it's called also Moksha Karaka. It's letting go, it's withdrawn. It's withdrawing from the energies of the house it sits in, sign and house. It's into letting go of materialistic aspects. So Rahu went drive towards materialistic aspects, Ketu wants to withdraw from it in the opposite house. So these are very, very karmic nodes. This is what we bring from previous lifetimes and then what we want to actualize, right? Through dissolution of external needs and attachment. It wants to dissolve the external needs and attachment. It wants to go more towards dissolution and spirituality, away from materialism towards materialism. Just like put it that simply. One goes towards spiritual side, one goes towards materialistic side. This is how Ketu and Rahu both behave. It's an energy. They both derive their energy from the dispositors, or the lord of, what is dispositor? Is the lord of the sign in which it sits. If it sits in Aries, it behaves like Mars. If it sits in Venus, it behaves like Venus sign. So by itself, it does not have any fruits that it will give. This is important to understand. By itself, it's just a obsessive or reclusive kind of energy. However, it pushes the person to go away from or to go towards something. Okay, this is what the main point you should remember. Let's speak about Jupiter. These are the extra personal planets, the first of them. Jupiter is the teacher. What does Jupiter give? What is he about? Its symbol looks like this. In the Western astrology, it's like a number 4. Jupiter, what is Jupiter? He is a strategist. He loves to strategize things. He is a teacher. He's an extravagant. He's an adventurer. All these qualities are of Jupiter. He is the acquirer, the director of knowledge, of teachings, of wealth, as finance, as of children. He's a significator of all of this in one's life. Jupiter commands respect. People with good Jupiter in the chart, they automatically have respect of their peers, of authority. They love to have authority through true knowledge and wisdom. Love to have authority through true knowledge and wisdom. They're seeking, Jupiter seeks expansion of qualities of any house and the sign it sits in. It is benefic even to the most negative houses, even to house like 6th, 8th and 12th, it will have benevolent energy. This is the quality of Jupiter. Wanting to give wisdom, wanting to give values. He's very traditional, he's very cultural. He's into seeking of knowledge, expansion, travel to foreign lands, adventure. These are the energies of Jupiter. Now let's speak about Saturn. Saturn is, first of all, he's a big rebel. He's rebellious. He's a worker who works day to day, toils. One who puts brick and concrete to a building. That's Saturn at his best. He loves to work day by day slowly. He's a ruler of time. Everything that takes time is ruled by Saturn. He's an outcast. He doesn't like to belong to the monarchy. He doesn't like to belong to the leadership. He's a worker. So he rebels against the leadership, sharing the energies of Saturn. He's very pragmatic and practical. He's very pessimistic. He's very frugal and poor. He's a quiet laborer, a bureaucrat, very practical. He's an administrator kind of a person. Works through fear and worry. This is how Saturn transmutes any area of a person's life. Works through fear and worry. Okay. Deals with hidden secrets, everything hidden underground, even professions related to oil and gas, which is hidden and underground, will come to Saturn. Everything dealing with hidden secrets, hidden knowledge, even occult, underground resources, lower dimensions of existence. People who have strong Saturn in the 8th and everything will have access to lower dimensions of existence. Shadow aspects and death, that's what Saturn represents. in contrast to Jupiter, this guy demands respect. He doesn't command that much respect. Nobody cares much for a worker, but he demands it. Through slow and steady work in life, they get respect. Work through discipline and patience. That's why it's a symbology of time. Why? Because Saturn takes time for everything. It's a slow and steady planet. Slow and steady wins the race. It's a kind of turtle kind of an energy. Works for others is a society. It works for others in the society. It loves service. That's why Venus is exalted in Saturn. Saturn loves to support Venus. Why? Because Venus also wants to give, selfless giving to the society. It's seeking slowing down or contraction qualities to any house it sits in. So Saturn, wherever it sits in, it contracts the ability of the house. It has even ability to stop the most negative aspects of the most negative houses. It's also called Stampana Shakti in Sanskrit, meaning to stop the effects of their house. So obviously one does not want to have Saturn in the house of gains because it will stop your gains. But if it's in the house of 6th, for example, house of enemies, it will stop the enemies. They will always be victorious over enemies. So see how Saturn plays out being a rebel. It will give wisdom but with harshness. It's a harsh teacher of life, Saturn. This is why most people don't like Saturn. Difficulties of practical life through loss, death, disease, hard work. This is why people do not like Saturn hanging around in the charts. Its energy is of an old person who's harsh, teaches wisdom through a harsh attitude. He's an impoverished teacher. Remember, Guru is also a teacher. Even Jupiter is a teacher. But Guru or Jupiter expands. This one contracts teaching. So both are teachers but in a completely different direction. He's into seeking fame, work for humanity, selfless, wants to ground. Why? Saturn is an airy planet. Airy planet seeking to ground. Jupiter is a fiery planet. It wants to be like the sun. Saturn wants to be like the earth. It wants to ground things. It wants to materialize everything. That's the basic energy of Saturn. Okay. Let's begin again. So Uranus, we get into the personal planets, which are global in nature, which ties the individual to the rest of the humanity. It's there. It's got a stamp. All these 3 planets will be in your natal chart. It will be in your transit, and it will be transiting for the entire globe as well. So Uranus is I call it the higher mind. The lower aspect of that being Mercury and Rahu, the north node. What does Uranus stand for? It stands for instigation. It stands for social change and social causes. That's why it acts through Saturn. We will see that later. It stands for social causes. Uranus, that's why it is very prominently highlighted even in the sign of Aquarius. Because Aquarius wants to create that social change and social causes in the 11th house. It does it through ingenuity and innovation. Ingenuity, uniqueness. The uniqueness of a person, where I want to bring my unique qualities to the world. It does it through innovation, reinventing itself all the time. It does it through rebellion and reformation. Uranus is a planet of individuation. Who am I? What do I bring to this world? That's Uranus. It's a planet of rebellion and reformation. It changes everything. It doesn't wait for other planets. Remember, all these higher planets, extra transpersonal planets that we are talking about, they will reform a particular area of a life and they will reform the globe as well. But how it does it is what we are going to discuss in this entire series of videos. So Uranus being a planet of individuation for the sake of collective, for the sake of society. That's how it works. Therefore it's a humanitarian. It cares about humanity. It cares about how things are being done for the better, the higher mind. What is better for the overall collective, right? It's the higher mind. And it does it as being a maverick, unconventional. Again, that's why it's highlighted as a Lord of Aquarius, the 11th sign of social networks, where Saturn and Rahu typically in the Vedic system will become exalted. Uranus also stands for individuation and it supports it. So Uranus through Rahu and Saturn will create the shifts on the ground. And it's higher mind, so that's why it is a higher lord of Mercury. It's an adventurous sign. It's very sociable and it's outgoing. These are the qualities of Uranus. Let's talk about the next transpersonal planet, which is Neptune, the higher heart. What do I mean by higher heart? It's a higher aspect of Venus and Ketu. Why do I tell Ketu? Because Ketu is the one which dissolves things. Once you dissolve things back into the heart realm, once the lower form of sensuality of Venus dissolves, it creates the higher aspect of emotions, which is what Neptune stands for. Neptune stands for compassion and inspiration. Again, it's an outgoing sign. It envelops the entire humanity and individual charts as well. Wherever Neptune is highlighted, it gives you inspiration. It gives you compassion towards people. It's a highly intuitive and it has got psychic receptivity. It connects to the higher dimensions of heart energy. Okay. Neptune is also concerned with glamour and enchantment, the fairy world, the other higher dimensions of existence, connecting to your ancestors, maybe connecting to galactic kind of entities. It has got all kinds of creative art forms. All things creative art forms, highest form of evolution comes from Venus, but that Venus draws its energy from Neptune, which is the higher heart. It creates detachment and break from. Remember, lower aspect is Ketu, but this detachment happens at a deeper level. It's the levels we are talking about here. It is break away from material gains and structure. It does not like structure. Structure is about Saturn. So Venus, Neptune therefore has nothing to do much with Saturn, as we will see in the further videos. It's all about culture, beauty and benevolence. So these are the energies of Neptune. Neptune becomes the higher evolution or the higher self of Venus in this sense. Now we talk about the last of the transpersonal planets, the Pluto. Pluto is the higher self, which is more like a combination of, we will see in the further videos also, it's more like a combination of, it draws its input from the Neptune and gives it to Uranus to go and act. So Pluto is a permanent transformer of all aspects of lower self. It transforms the ego itself, the sense of self. That's why I call it the higher self. Your sense of self is itself transformed by the movement of Pluto. The lower aspect being Mars and Ketu, because Mars is the driver, it's got drive energy, and Ketu being the south node one which is withdrawn. So it's more like a lord. That's why it's also called the higher lord of Scorpio, because Scorpio is ruled by Mars and Ketu, right? Pluto is all about renewal and revival. Get rid of the old, let's bring in the new. That's Pluto. Get rid of the old. Doesn't matter what the cost. Pluto does not count the cost, just like Mars. It does not count what it is lost in order to bring about that revival or renewal. It just, let's get rid of it. Permanent transformation of ego, letting go. This is permanent. Once Pluto goes through the particular house, there is no coming back, for the person is permanently transformed, moves forward from that point on. How does it do it? It does it through upheaval and unearthing. Upheaval, destruction. That's why Pluto is also considered to be death. Death is nothing but an upheaval or unearthing or removal, permanent removal of something. Only then it creates room for the new to happen. It has access to subconscious and collective unconscious energies. Remember, collective unconscious is there at all times at whatever level. Today's collective unconscious in 2021 is different from what it was during the time of Jesus, for example. It was very different. Collective unconscious energy shifts, and Pluto is in charge of that. So it goes on transforming through all the 12 houses. It's about regeneration and rebirth through death. Through death, as in death being this energy of removing something permanently and bringing something completely new. It's permanent. There's no going back when Pluto transits. It's dissolution of ego. Why? The ego is solidification of the soul energy in terms of I want this and I'm only like this. When that sense is removed by Pluto, something else always replaces it. It is dissolution of ego and collective ego as well of humanity. But once it transits, you can't go back. It's finished. It's done. It's removed.